Welcome everyone to our annual January webinar about potty training for special needs. I am very pleased to welcome Aubrey Zaruba from Kids on the Move. She is an amazing resource and advocate and supporter of our community, and she has some really great information that she's going to share today to help you prepare for potty training, execute, and try to make this low stress and high success. I'm going to turn the time over to Aubrey. Aubrey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is one of my favorite things to do each year. I love to meet with you all and kind of share a little bit of information about potty training and things like that. I am trying to get my screen. I was telling Sylvia right before we started that I typically do okay, let's see how this is going to work. I typically do Zoom on my phone, actually, which is maybe surprising to some people, but I usually do Zoom on my phone because that is just a little bit easier for me. And I'm sharing my screen and I'm not sure it's actually sharing.
We can see your screen. I think we just need to go back to the PowerPoint.
Okay. I'm hoping I can
Yeah, we can see
see.
it.
Okay. I was hoping I'd be able to see, because I don't usually do Zoom on my phone, I was hoping I'd be able to see my PowerPoint and see you all. I think that's probably a possibility. I just am not good with technology. So right now, all I can see is my screen. I can't see anybody. I can't see the chat. I can't see myself. So that is not my favorite way to do things, but it's going to be totally fine. I just want to make everyone aware that all I can see is my PowerPoint. And so that means if you want to say something, you're just going to have to unmute yourself and say it. Sylvia usually does a pretty good job at keeping her eye on the chat, but I will not be able to see it right now. And so I think we'll just go ahead and move along. And if anyone has anything they want to say, just feel free to say it. We at Kids on the Move, where I work, we use Microsoft Teams. So anytime I am on the computer doing a webinar, things like that, I'm on Microsoft Teams and I kind of know how to work it that way. And it's kind of silly and embarrassing that we're this far into like lots of virtual things and I still am like not proficient with Zoom, but here we are. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I don't want to waste too much of our time talking about technology. Many of you may have been here before when I've given this presentation, and you might even recognize the slide. And a lot of what we talk about today is going to be fairly similar to what you've heard before. I have made some tweaks this year, but there's a lot of similarity. I am a developmental specialist at Kids on the Move, and I have my email here. If there's anything that you have a question about and you don't feel comfortable unmuting and talking on the recording, or you just kind of want to chat one-on-one, feel free to shoot me an email and we can talk. I will have some time at the end for some questions. You're also welcome to ask questions as we go. This is kind of a little bit more of an information session with a little bit of Q&A. Certainly, we don't have time to talk about everyone's individual situations in depth, but my hope is as we move through this information today that we will be able to at least have a little bit better knowledge or a little bit better game plan moving into our potty training experiences. As you all are fully aware, potty training with the caveat of with special needs can sometimes be a little bit different than a lot of the potty training information you might see out there on the internet. So we're going to dive right in. I have added a few not super great credits this year where I've gotten some more information from some more podcasts, webinars, interviews, things that I'm not necessarily linking because it's little snippets here and there. As you all know, in the field of child development, there is a plethora of information. And just with everything, the way the world is in 2026, we have no lack of information. And so when we're trying to figure out what source we want to use to kind of research or figure out the methods or things that we want to do, sometimes the information is actually more of the problem than anything. We have so much information. And now that AI is such a big part of the picture, it's kind of hard sometimes to tease out what is real, legitimate, verified studied research versus what is AI generated, what is someone's experience, all these things. So there's a lot of places to get information. These are some of the places where I've gotten some of my information. I have added this additional resources page because these are some places that I've gotten some extra information this year. There is a newer book called Good to Go, A Fresh Take on Potty Training for Today's Intentional Parent. I very recently learned about this resource, and I'm going to be perfectly honest that I haven't read the book. I haven't been able to get my hands on it quite yet. I listened to a couple of interviews and searched their website and their social media to get a little bit of information. I think their take on potty training is a little bit different than sort of our classic or traditional approaches that we have been familiar with. And some people may really resonate with their approach, and other people may not care for it. And that's all totally fine. The same can be said for Big Little Feelings potty training course. Again, I haven't been able to access the full course, but have taken snippets from interviews, from social media posts, and from coworker. I have one coworker in particular who has taken her course, and I've been able to get some information from her. And it is for some people and not for everyone. And they don't necessarily really include the component of potty training with special needs. So I know that that's a frustration that you're all very well acquainted with. I do think, however, there's some useful information. There also is healthychildren.org. And if you look at this on the PowerPoint, there's a hyperlink there. So I think Sylvia will be able to send out the PowerPoint, hopefully. You hopefully can access it through her, or you can email me and I can email it to you. It looks like there's a space in there, which it is because I had typed out and then I hyperlinked it. And so healthychildren.org is a website that is from the American Academy of Pediatrics. So there were some really great articles I found there that you may find of interest if you're looking for more information. I would love to know what other resources people may have used in their quest for figuring out potty training. If anyone has anything that they have used and felt beneficial, I'd love for you to just type it in the chat. We're not going to dive into it today, but I would love to hear from you if you're able to. If you maybe perhaps, like Sylvia mentioned, you might be driving and you're not able to type in the chat right now, that's totally fine. You can shoot me an email or even let Sylvia know and she can email me as well, because I'd love to know where people are kind of getting their information in general. Okay, first things first. Potty training is such a hot topic in parenting because it's such a big milestone that most of us wish our kids would reach before they actually do. And so, before we get into specific techniques and strategies, first we have to evaluate readiness. And this is something that I've found to be really fascinating in recent research or recent study, is that there have been some shifts in the ideas about readiness. Speaking from my professional background, I still think evaluating readiness is pretty critical to success. There are some people starting to feel like even if there isn't sufficient readiness, that it's okay to get started. Again, I think this is a very personal choice. It's very dependent upon you and your child and your family situation. For the purposes of my presentation, I'm going to continue to speak about readiness. And if this doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. This is just an information session. This isn't like the end all be all. So I like to look at parent caregiver readiness first, because if as the caregiver, as the parent, you're not ready, it's not probably the time. And is anyone ever really ready? But as we'll talk about this, number one, do you have the time it's going to take to do this? Do you have the patience? How realistic are your expectations for your child? In a very ideal world, our kids would be 100% trained night and day. That may not be the reality. So, what are our expectations as we start to embark on potty training? And do we have the patience to go through that? Are you prepared for your child's independence? Are you prepared for them to become trained or somewhat trained and really have the I do it myself attitude? And are you set up for success? I'm not saying like you can't just dive in even if you're not all of these things, but I think it's good to at least evaluate these things within ourselves. And then once we evaluate these things within ourselves, then we can start to evaluate, okay, how ready do I think my child is? Again, a topic of conversation is we can start before we have complete readiness. I have really always been under the take of if we're not ready, it's not going to go as well as we hope. And I still stand by that, although some people are arguing the other case. And that's okay. I think it is totally okay for people to disagree, especially when it comes to opinions. And so it is possible that you may be in the camp of, I don't know if we'll ever be fully ready, but I really want to try. And I think that's great. I think it's good to just be realistic about where we're at with readiness. So, where are we at with bladder control? Are we able to stay dry for several hours at a time? Are we waking up dry after a nap and eventually at night when we wake up in the morning, are we dry? Are we acknowledging a wet diaper and or the need to urinate? So sometimes kids will start to notice wet diapers can be pretty hard to notice because obviously diapers are intended to be really absorbent. So sometimes kids aren't necessarily able to notice that their diaper is wet, but they might be able to start communicating or at least acknowledging that they are urinating or that they have urinated so that they can start to understand that part of the process. The second thing is bowel control. Are we seeing bowel movements happening on a schedule or and it doesn't have to be like every day at 10:07, but kind of just are we noticing a pattern? Are we noticing they stop to play, hide, go to a specific place to have a bowel movement rather than just sort of like they're playing, doing their thing, and all of a sudden we know they need a change? Are they acknowledging a need for a diaper change and or their need to have a bowel movement? And sometimes it happens where we think, I don't even know if they notice, but I notice every day they're going and kind of hiding somewhere, going to a specific spot in the house, and I'm picking up on the cues that they might be subconsciously aware of their need to go. And now, so those are kind of some of the physical readiness things. How about the emotional readiness? Are they complaining about wet or dirty diapers? Are they anticipating the need to go before it happens? For example, are they going somewhere to hide or to have privacy? Are they letting you know that they're about to go or that they are going? Are they letting you know they just went? Are they noticing the difference between clean and not clean in other areas outside of potty training? Like, are they noticing their hands being clean versus not clean? Are they noticing their dishes being clean versus not clean? Are they noticing their clothing? Things like that. How much independence are they interested in? Do they like to be independent and doing things for themselves? That's, a sign that we might be on the right path to readiness. And then we have some self-care readiness that we're looking at. Are they helping with dressing and undressing? Are they helping with hand washing? Are they drinking from a cup for most of their liquids? Drinking an 8-ounce bottle makes it a lot harder to stay dry than drinking a few sips from a cup. It also is just like a good sign of developmental progression if they have weaned from the bottle and are drinking from a cup. When we add in the component of potty training with special needs, we know that some of these things are going to be a little bit more, depending on the child and their needs, we may not have full readiness. And now, how about communication? We need to be able to communicate about our potty training or our toileting needs. So communication readiness would kind of be split into two parts, the understanding and the expressing. So do they follow simple directions? Do they imitate simple actions? So are they able to follow directions so that we can kind of move through the steps that we need to do in order to be trained? Do they imitate simple actions? Because there is a lot of imitation involved with almost all teaching. Do they understand the difference between wet and dry, clean and dirty, like we talked about? Can they sit for at least 5 minutes? When we are talking about potty training, we need to be able to sit on the toilet for a significant amount of time in order to have success. So, are we able to sit outside of the bathroom for that long? And then once we're moving into the bathroom, are we able to sit in the bathroom and then eventually on the toilet for at least 5 minutes? Do they respond to praise for accomplishments? That one is, again, we're going to talk in a minute about using rewards and praise and whether or not you want to do that. If you decide you do want to do that, it's important that they do respond to praise if we're planning to use praise as our motivator. Some more communication readiness, like we talked about, the expressive communication. Are they using gestures, signs, pictures, or words to communicate? We have to have a way to communicate the need to go. Do they have a specific strategy to communicate that need? So we may have a child who's not talking, but we need to have another way for them to communicate. So there's lots of strategies. And my hunch is if we're needing a strategy specifically for potty training, then we're needing those communication strategies outside of the bathroom as well. And hopefully we're working on those in other avenues. I usually cautious to assume, but in this case, I kind of assume if we're needing it for potty training, we're needing it for other things, and we're probably working on that elsewhere. But we do need to make sure we have that in place. And then motor readiness, are they able to walk and stoop for at least 6 months to a year to have the motor function and the motor capacity in order to be able to squat down, to be able to stoop, to be able to do what they need to do so that they can properly use the toilet. And then are they picking up small objects, which maybe seems a little bit confusing in terms of why does that have anything to do with potty training? It just indicates an overall readiness with their motor development. So it's not that they need to be picking up something small in the process of using the toilet. It's just part of the readiness factor with their motor skills. So now we talked about, are we ready? Let's say we evaluated all those things and we decided, yep, we're ready to give it a go. Again, a lot of people are back and forth on how much readiness we need to fully have mastered. If we don't have all the skills, but we want to start anyway, totally great, totally fine. If we want to work on some of those skills to get ourselves closer to being ready, I think that's great as well. So make your choice. Once you've decided that you're ready, now let's get ready. Let's talk about some things that we can do to help us to get ready. And before I jump into that, does anybody have any specific questions related to readiness before we move on? And if those questions come up at the end, that's okay too. Did I hear somebody unmute? Again, I can't see at all, so I don't hear anyone talking. I'm going to go ahead and move along. If in fact somebody did have a question, I won't be offended if you interrupt me. So, assuming we don't have any questions, we'll move forward to getting ourselves ready. So how do we actually want to start? And some of you may have gone through this process already several times and not fully gotten to be where you want to be. And I think that's okay. We just kind of go backwards a little bit and see where we need to go. I think that starting with a chart or a tracker or some type of tracking is important 1 to 2 weeks before starting. You may have been doing a bit of a mental tracker. You maybe have been noticing, oh, I've noticed every day we're needing to need a diaper change around this time of day. Or I'm noticing every time like they go behind the couch every morning around this time, I'm starting to see some patterns. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary you pull out your computer or your pen and paper and make a chart, but I do think it's good to notice patterns. Something that came about in the Good to Go resource, I guess, struggle finding my words, is are they standing or are they squatting when they have a bowel movement? Something that we may find difficult is a lot of times kids are standing in play as they're having a bowel movement when they're using a diaper. And then we go to put them on the toilet and now it's a different experience for their body. It's a different sensation as well as different muscles that are used in order to actually have that bowel movement. So something that we might want to take note of Next, we want to make a game plan. So what is our goal? And what is our, I should even say, like, what is our realistic goal? Again, I think a lot of times our goal is to achieve completely fully trained day and night. But for some of us, we may be kind of aware that that might not be feasible, especially at this time, but we still want to go ahead and start. So our goal might be that we want to just introduce the toilet, or we want to create safety in the bathroom, or we want to be partially trained, even if we don't feel like we can be fully trained, or we want to be daytime trained, even though we can't be fully nighttime trained. I think it's really important to be realistic about what your ideal goal is, maybe, but what is your realistic goal that we're hoping to accomplish as we embark on this training. And then we want to gather supplies. And this is where we're going to talk a little bit about the reward system. Some people are very into using rewards when it comes to parenting in general, when it comes to potty training. I am a proponent of rewards. I know that some people are not, and that is, again, perfectly fine. We don't all have to agree on everything. One of the downsides of a reward is that we do need to phase them out. We don't want to have our kids needing rewards every time they use the toilet for the rest of forever. And so we do have to figure out a phase out plan. Another barrier, I guess not barrier necessarily, but just another point of consideration is that rewards do teach us to do things because of more of an external motivation. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But as we're gathering our supplies, if we have decided we're going to use rewards, we need to make sure to gather those up. We might want to consider some smaller rewards and some bigger rewards, depending on you, your child, and all of your personal parenting philosophies. You may decide to use some food rewards. You may not. Again, totally up to you. Stickers, food coloring in the toilet water. I've seen people use that as a reward, that after they go to the potty, they're able to just squirt a little food coloring and turn the toilet water yellow or blue or green or whatever. A small toy, some one-on-one time. If we are using rewards, we need to make sure that we are using rewards that are rewarding and motivating to your child. So if it's something that they do not care about, obviously that's not going to make a great reward. We also, if we're using rewards, may want to create sticker charts, make sure we have the stickers, or if we're going to do a cotton ball or a pom-pom jar, we might have those things, already gathered. We need to figure out what we're going to do about underwear. Are we going straight to regular underwear? Are we using a training pants type of underwear? What are we doing? Are we taking the diaper off? Kind of our plan with that. Pull-ups, as you can see, I have question marks here. Pull-ups are more convenient, but they're not necessarily more helpful. A pull-up is a diaper. It's not 100% as absorbent as a diaper, as many of you probably know, but a pull-up is a diaper. It's intended to absorb. I think pull-ups have their place. I'll talk about some tips and tricks in a minute when it comes to pull-ups. But if you plan to use pull-ups, you'll definitely want to have those available. And then most likely, depending on the size of your child, you may need a step stool, either for them to get themselves onto the toilet or for them to wash their hands. We might need a potty seat. Some people like to use the insert that goes into the toilet. Some people like to use, there's also another one that I think attaches to the lid of the toilet, and then you can pull it down. I'm not 100% sure how that one works. Some people use a specific child-sized toilet. So that's, again, a personal choice. One thing of consideration with that is if you're using any type of special potty seat, those are not readily available in public. So I'm not at all saying you shouldn't use them, they're bad, but I just think it's good to consider how often are we going to be needing to practice our potty training in public, because if it's often, we may need to be aware of that. Another thing you might want to think of is something for them to put their feet on so that their feet are not just dangling on the ground. A lot of people have, adopted the squatty potty technique for their home. A step stool can also be good. Sometimes dangling feet can be a difficult sensory experience, but it can also sometimes be a little harder in the actual motor well, it's required of our bodies to actually have success with our toileting. Something to consider. Next, once we've gathered our supplies, we need to, and maybe we even choose our approach before we gather our supplies, but we want to choose our approach. There's many different ways to approach toilet training, and it doesn't really matter which one you decide. You just pick the one that resonates the most with you and you think would work best for your child. There's kind of the gradual or casual training where we introduce the concept of the toilet here and there. We might sit on the toilet before bath time. We might sit on the toilet in our clothes. We might try to take care of our potty needs in the bathroom. We might do diaper changes in the bathroom, or after diaper, we might wash our hands in the bathroom sink. We might flush the toilet even if we haven't used the toilet. No pressure, praising success. The idea is just to introduce the idea of potty training. There's also the 3-day method, which is sometimes called the flooding method. This is where we're going to plan to stay home for 3 days. We're going to offer a lot of liquids. We're going to take frequent trips to the toilet to catch them when they need to go. And then there's also scheduled training where we're dressing in pants and underwear, having backups available. We have the child pull down their pants and pull them back up, sit on the toilet every 30 minutes for at least 2 minutes. We can use a visual timer if we need to or want to. We reward their sitting, a big, huge reward with very specific praise if they have success. So, things like good job going potty or wow, you went potty. We're not just saying good job. We're letting them know good job for what. And then wash their hands. We're going to check their underwear about every 5 minutes for an accident or for signs that they need to go. Accidents will happen. We want to have them do as much of the cleanup as possible in the bathroom, remain neutral, and state the facts. Things such as, you are wet, we need to clean, things like that. I thought it was interesting in the Good to Go resource. They call it a miss rather than an accident, which I kind of thought that was interesting. I don't personally inherently have a problem with the word accident, but some people may not like it. So I thought the word miss was kind of nice to just be like, oh, we had a miss. We need to clean it up, instead of labeling it as an accident. Again, I don't have an issue either way. That's a personal choice. Now let's talk about rewards versus no rewards. Kind of touched on this a minute ago, kind of talking about the external versus the intrinsic motivation. So rewards teach us to do something because we want to get something. But rewards often work. Many of us are motivated by rewards. Even as adults, rewards tend to work. At Kids on the Move, we have a reward system. We have a certain number of appointments that we need to meet each month, and we have some months where we don't work nearly as many days. For example, December, we're really lucky. They give us a nice 2-week holiday break, but we still need to get all of our work done, even though we have 2 weeks off. And so they offer us a reward system. If we get our work done, we get Amazon gift cards. If we don't get our work done, we don't get the gift cards. So a lot of us are motivated to get the gift cards, and we need to meet those numbers for funding, and obviously we want families to receive their services. And so as adults, we often use reward systems. We use reward systems with kids. If we use rewards, there has to be a way to phase them out over time. Back to my example at work, they're not offering us rewards every time we need to get our work done. So there also has to be some intrinsic or internal motivation to get our work done. The same goes for our kids. We're not wanting to give them an M&M or a sticker every time they use the toilet for the rest of forever. So we've got to figure out a way to get rid of them if we're using them. How do we learn to listen to our bodies? So ultimately, the way that we become toilet trained, the way that we as adults know that we need to use the restroom, is we learn to listen to our bodies. Our bodies tell us, oh, you need to go to the restroom, and we take care of our needs. We want our kids to also learn how to listen to their bodies, which can be a really complex process. And that's something that we don't talk a whole ton about in this presentation, but I think it's a very important topic when it comes to potty training specifically with special needs, because sometimes our awareness of our body and what our body is telling us can take a little bit longer to develop. It also kind of depends on the sensory system and how much sensory regulation we have or don't have. And if we are not having as much sensory regulation, or our sensory regulation is maybe a little bit all over the place, we may not have as much body awareness. So listening to our body for the cues that we need to go to the bathroom might take a little bit more time. It is a very personal decision whether to use rewards or not. You are the expert on your child. So there are some popular experts who are recommending not using rewards, and that's totally fine. They're well within their right to do that. I think that at the end of the day, parents are the biggest expert on their child. And so if you feel like rewards are the right thing for your child, then I think it's the right thing for your child. And if you don't think it's the right thing, then I think you're right. And sometimes we try not using rewards and we find out, oh, that didn't really work. I'm going to try rewards, or vice versa. Does anybody have any comments or questions about like where we've gotten so far? The preparation, the choosing a method, all that kind of stuff.
I am watching the chat, so if you don't want to go turn off your mic and speak, you're welcome to type it into the chat and I'll read that out.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. And I am presenting to you guys today from our Kids on the Move has a satellite trailer location at an elementary school. And any of you that are in or around Pioneer Crossing might be hearing the hammering outside. We're located right where they're breaking up all of the cement, and I didn't really think that through before I decided to do this presentation from here. So I apologize if there's a lot of hammering in the background today. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Anyone's welcome to add any questions at any time. So when we think about potty training, I think a lot of us feel a big sense of dread, a big sense of overwhelm, particularly if you've tried potty training without success in the past. And it can really stir up a lot of feelings. And particularly when you're the parent of the child, I think it's very, very common to have a lot of feelings involved. And I really like the way Love and Logic talks about sort of just empathy in general, and using, I borrowed this phrase from them, and that's why I give them credit. Empathy overpowers anger. And I think that when we're talking about parenting, we, like to think that we don't get angry at our kids, but I know that's not real life. We all get angry sometimes. I think we all try to, obviously manage our anger and things like that. But I really like the idea that when I start to feel angry, if I can take a step back and try to find empathy. And I like this graphic as well. The opposite of anger is not calmness, it's empathy. I think sometimes when we start to get angry, we try to find a way to calm ourselves down, which great, totally. Myself, I do that as well. But I think really what we're also looking for, especially when it comes to potty training and any other areas of our life that don't even have anything to do with our kids, when things start to make us angry, if we can seek for empathy, I think it automatically helps us find the calm. And I don't think anybody likes to be angry that I know of. It happens, it's a natural part of life. And when it comes to potty training, I know that that can really, really bring up a lot of feelings. And so if you're feeling yourself, feeling a little bit of anger, a little bit of frustration, try to find that empathy. Potty training can be frustrating. Anger and negative emotion do not help at all. Punishment for accidents usually backfires. I think it's kind of natural. I do like a logical consequences situation, but punishment in general, it doesn't really usually achieve the purpose that we're hoping for. So if we can, kind of try to find more of an empathetic approach, we're probably going to have more success. I don't know why this is so blurry, but from Dr. John Gottman, empathy not only matters, it is the foundation of effective parenting. I won't continue to talk too much more about that, but I do really think that that's true. And I know that as a general generalization. Parents of children with special needs are some of the most empathetic people. And I think whether that comes naturally to you or you've had to find it, that empathy is something that you probably already are pretty good at. And so, kind of remembering that skill and that strength as you think about potty training, I think is really helpful. Okay, so let's dive into some tips and tricks. Number one, on the note of empathy and emotion and all of that, is to stay calm. The more riled up we get about it, our kids will know. If we're feeling very, very anxious about starting, our kids are going to know. We feed off each other, we co-regulate each other. So if we are feeling a lot of feelings surrounding the idea of potty training, our kids are going to feel that as well. So we need to kind of try and do what we can do to try to stay calm and regulated ourselves so that we can help our kids with that as well. Meet them where they are. This is a new bullet point I added this year that I should have been in here all along, is that we need to meet them where they are. A lot of times we try to drag kids up to where we want them to be, and it doesn't always go that well. I think in general, meeting kids where they are is a lot more successful across the board, not just with potty training, but all things. This one is so hard, especially if you're like me and really like to be in control. You're not. You are not in control. We can't make kids toilet train. The more power we try to enforce, the more they might withhold. And we do not want that. We do not want kids to withhold. We do not want to get ourselves into a situation where we have created constipation because we're trying to be in control. Constipation is going to be the death of potty training. And so we want to avoid that at all costs. We've got to relinquish the control. You can still be the parent, you can still be in charge, but we can't be controlling. Once you start, give it a little time before giving up. It's okay to not have a lot of successes right at first, but if it is not working, don't be afraid to wait a little longer until everyone is ready. If you start it, you introduce it, it's not going great, you give it a little time, you decide, you know what, I think we're going to scale back and I think we're going to try this again in a few months or even a year or however long it makes sense. Okay, back to those power struggles. If you find yourself in a power struggle, get out. Get out as fast as you can. Offer choices, let them have some control, take a step back. A power struggle is never going to yield the result that we want it to. And so, anytime I feel like I'm getting in a power struggle with a kid, I really have to do a quick evaluation of, is this power struggle worth it? And is it likely to end the way that I want it to end? And when it comes to potty training, the answer is no. The power struggle is not going to end in the child doing better with potty training. It's going to probably end in a backtrack. So get out of that power struggle as quickly as you can. Here's some more tips and tricks. When it comes to pull-ups, I said I had some more to say about that. I like to use pull-ups over the top of underwear. That way they can feel if they have an accident, but you have a little bit less of a mess to clean up. On their own, pull-ups feel like a diaper, and so we're not totally accomplishing anything by wearing a pull-up. However, if we just wear underwear, we often have many messes that we don't really want to be cleaning up. So I like using both, and you will still have to clean up the underwear if you have that accident, but now it's not running down their leg or getting on the floor or other things like that. It's contained within the pull-up. The other thing that can be kind of nice is with that pull-up, sometimes they start to go just a little bit, and that does create a need for cleaning and cleanup. But sometimes that little tiny bit of starting to go when they have that underwear with the pull-up over the top, they feel it. And so then they like, oh, I'm supposed to go to the potty. Daytime training may occur long before nighttime training is mastered. Same for urine and bowel movements. We may be totally trained with urine, but we need to have a diaper for a bowel movement. Like I said a minute ago, avoid constipation at all costs, even if we need to use a diaper for bowel movements for a really long time. Constipation is going to end us when it comes to potty training. So we want to do everything we can to avoid that. We talked about fading out rewards. Remember to reward staying dry if you're using rewards. That is a time that we get rewarded, not just when we have success on the potty. Boys can sit or stand. That's a personal preference. If they are standing, a Cheerio or something similar can be a target in the toilet to address aim so that we're not having a big mess all over the entire bathroom. Some people prefer to teach their boys to sit down. Again, personal preference. Some people like to learn to sit backwards and hug the tank to create a little more stability rather than sitting forwards on the toilet and having less motor support or less stability. Again, we kind of talked about possibly having something for their feet to go on, which I think is helpful. Accidents are probable. Handle with minimum motion and move on. We got to clean it up. It's totally fine. Keep things very matter of fact. Keep it positive. If flushing is scary, teach them that it's safe and okay. And flushing is tricky. Some kids really love to flush, so we don't really need to practice it outside of the toileting process. But for kids who might find it scary, we might need to practice a few times when it's not part of that potty training routine. I love a visual schedule to help with the sequence of things across the board. I love visual cues, but a visual schedule when it comes to potty training. And if your child is kind of a ways into the process and achieving some decent independence, but they need some additional cues, I think a visual schedule can be really helpful to make sure that they're hitting all the steps. It can also be really helpful in the training process, especially if we're starting to get more emotion involved. Then it's the schedule is telling us what we need to do. It's not mom telling you you need to do it. The schedule is telling us that. So that can be helpful. But kind of having those steps of pulling your pants down, sitting on the toilet, using the toilet paper, flush, pull your pants up, wash your hands. That way, the schedule is telling us we have to do these things. Sometimes we do need to do a little data tracking. We talked about tracking before starting, but sometimes we need to track while we're in the middle of it as well. So, some key takeaways that I want to leave you with: make sure everyone is ready. And again, that readiness can vary. Prepare before you start. Give yourself adequate time. I've heard of stories of people that are like, oh, I'm having a baby in a month, so we're going to start potty training. I don't know if that's fully adequate time for your child to master it, feel really proficient before a new baby rocks the world of the family. I don't know what adequate time is. That is a very individual thing. Some kids pick up on it right away, and other kids take a long time. Remain calm and positive, meet and join them where they are, and celebrate their successes. Sitting on the toilet, successfully going in the toilet, staying dry, things like that. Okay, we have reached the end of the prepared presentation. So I'm going to exit out of my PowerPoint and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I will be able to, let's see, hopefully. Okay, I think I've stopped sharing my screen.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So now and like I said, hopefully we can make the PowerPoint available if you all are interested in having that resource. But what about questions? I don't see anything. I know Sylvia's been monitoring the chat. I don't see anything typed here so far. What questions or things were you hoping to kind of brainstorm or talk about? And yeah, Sylvia said she'll send out that PowerPoint. Feel free to share the PowerPoint with any friends that weren't able to make it today. I don't have any sort of qualms about it being shared. I don't mind that whatsoever. So you have permission to share the PowerPoint. Same thing with the link. Once Sylvia is able to get the recording posted, I'm more than happy for you to share the link with friends that may be interested in the information. Does anybody have anything they wanted to brainstorm today?
Aubrey, I have a question. For children that are in public school and they're getting assistance and you're working with their IEP, what are some tips and suggestions you have so that way the method you're using at home matches what is being supported in the classroom?
Oh, that is a really good idea and probably a challenge that many of you are facing or will face. I think that for the most part, I think that people in the school setting have such a deep desire to help your child. And also, as we all well know, resources are not always as readily available as we hope they would be. And so I think that my number one suggestion would be communication, as much communication as possible, making sure that in the school setting, they know the method you're using at home and that you are willing to provide as much help to continue that system. For example, if you're using a visual schedule at home, if you can provide that same visual schedule for the child to have at school. I don't really know specifically how it works with like a reward system at school. You know, if you're using treats or toys or stickers or things like that. I think that would probably be an individual conversation with your child's either teacher or aide or, you know, things like that. I do think if you intend to start potty training or that's already something you're doing when you have your IEP meeting, that would be a great time to bring it up because then you have, and it all depends on what time of year you're writing your IEP and what school your child is at. Are they moving schools and all, you know, lots of those types of considerations. But a lot of times you have potentially the principal or another representative, you have the teacher, you have more than just the teacher herself or himself um, to be able to kind of talk through, we are potty training at home and we would love support at school, how can we best work together. I think that, like I said, I think a lot of times the professionals at school, they really really want to help and support you, and sometimes they just don't really have the capacity to like troubleshoot things on their end. And I know that on your end as a parent, you're constantly doing this. You're constantly advocating for your child. You're constantly communicating with your child's teachers and therapists and all the things. But I think that's probably going to be your best um, route to success is doing everything you can to support the teachers, the school workers in kind of aiding your process and kind of letting them, you know, like letting them know what your hope is for that support at school. And then, of course, if your child is not really trained, even if you've been using underwear at home, but we're having a lot of accidents, I think we all are, you know, totally aware that we can't expect teachers to be cleaning up accidents all day. So we're probably going to have to make some adjustments to what kind of, you know, diaper pull up, underwear, that sort of thing, too. So I'm not sure if we had another question.
I have a question.
Okay.
So my son he's 6 and has Down syndrome, and I feel like we're kind of backwards on everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
he can tell me when he needs to go, um, like poop, and he's consistent at like doing bowel movements on the toilet.
Uh-huh.
Um, and he wakes up dry, and I'll take him in and he'll pee on the toilet. But then he just like pees in his pull up all day long. And so we've done like spurts like over fall break. We tried um and we had like a day or two where he did really well and he stayed dry, but it was me constantly like taking him in and not him telling me that like he needs to go in. And
Mm-hmm.
then he just starts to get irritated because it's like, I don't want to be interrupted from what I'm doing. And he's really stubborn anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
then um, we had some people come over and the timer went off and I couldn't get him to the bathroom fast enough. And he had an accident in the underwear and he has some sensory issues. And so he lost his mind. And after like the wet feeling, he's just absolutely refused to put underwear back on. Like
Uh-huh.
he's like he'll take them and just like throw them and hide them, and he'll go and find like pull-ups around the house and put them back on.
Uh-huh.
um and so I didn't want to do the power struggle, and so we've kind of just like let it be. I don't
Uh-huh.
really know where to like jump back in.
Go from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling that your story's a bit relatable. Some people don't fully get the like training on one side or the other kind of a thing, but like obviously, like you said, your son's doing pretty well with going poop in the potty, having those bowel movements. But I think the like I don't want to do the power struggle, but now I found myself a little bit in it, and what do I do? And again, so much of this is like personal, but the things that you've done so far make a lot of sense to me. And kind of just letting him go to his pull up. The sensory component is something we didn't really talk about a whole lot or hardly at all today, but I do think that's a big consideration because sometimes sensory experiences, particularly if our sensory needs are quite overwhelming, and sometimes as adults we can relate to that and sometimes we can't. Sometimes some adults have really pretty good sensory regulation and we can't totally relate to like very heightened sensory experiences, and some of us can, and that's just like you can or you can't. But it sounds like for your son, for him, that sensory experience of being wet, having those wet underwear, it's very overwhelming to him. And that kind of affects everything. And we can't really tell him, no, it doesn't, right? Because it does. And so meeting him where he's at, and, kind of, I don't like the sensation of wet underwear. He's 6, which like he's starting to understand things more cognitively, but he may not be fully ready for a logical discussion. Obviously, the obvious answer to adults is, well, if you don't like wet underwear, then go in the toilet. But we haven't quite made that connection yet. I like that you're using the timer. There's a lot of pressure on a person. Sometimes I also like to take the pressure off the person and just, oh, the timer said, it's not me, it's the timer. So I've got to listen to the timer. I'm going into the bathroom. I'd love for you to come. So that it's kind of just like, I'm not telling you to do it. It's the timer telling you to do it. I'm also curious, and maybe other people can pipe in if you're in a spot too, and we're going to start running short on time, which I apologize about. But I know they have the watches that will kind of do like more of like a beep, a vibration, something like that to kind of help. My guess is also that on a sensory level, we haven't fully developed the ability to like understand what his body is telling him when it comes to pee. And how many of us do that? Where we're like, we kind of need to go to the bathroom, but we're in the middle of doing something. We're just like, I'm just going to hold it for a minute, or I'm going to finish this thing. And as adults, we typically can hold it. I don't know that that's best for our bodies to do that, but a lot of times we do it. And then we get to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, I got to go so bad, but I could still hold it if I have to. And kids aren't there yet, right? Like a 6-year-old is not there to be able to do that, but I think they have the same mentality. And I don't know yet if he's fully getting that initial, like, I kind of need to go pee. It might be, he might not even get there until he's already going. And so the listening to your body, I think, is going to be an important conversation and a tricky one. Are you working with an occupational therapist at all?
I mean, he has one just in school, but not outside of school.
Okay. And a lot of times the ones in school are more focused on handwriting and cutting and things like that. If you have a chance to chat with the occupational therapist, I don't know how accessible they are by email. You might ask if they have any tips for kind of helping him with his, kind of body awareness. I think that would be kind of the route we need to go. But yeah, I think if we can kind of take a little bit of the pressure off of us, and you may consider trying like the wet underwear with the pull up, that he's going to get that same sensation, but it's possible he may start to pee and then I think I need to go to the bathroom.
We had I tried even a different brand of pull-ups that made it like feel that sensation of when he was wet, and he started taking them off right after he would go.
Okay.
And so I don't know if maybe that would be like an in-between, but
yeah, it might be. And also just kind of helping him to learn that it's okay to take it off, but we need to go in the bathroom to take it off.
Yeah.
And trying to direct
taking it off everywhere right now, like just stripping down naked all over.
Yeah. And like I don't blame him. I would want to take it off too. But I think if we can kind of like, okay, you don't like it when you're wet. I know that bothers you. It's okay. You can
Yeah.
take it off. We need to take it off in the bathroom. That's where we take our clothes off. And maybe even, I don't know how, like if you're doing dressing and undressing in the bathroom, but we may even just kind of start the concept of like, oh, when we take our pants off, we do it in the bathroom. And like, of course, lots of us dress and undress in our bedrooms, and that's totally fine and all of that. But just to kind of help him with this concept of like, if I want my pants off, I need to go into the bathroom to take care of that. Or if I want my shorts off or my underwear, things like that. Or maybe we change pants in the bedroom or the bathroom. But if we're changing our underwear or our pull up or our diaper, we do that in the bathroom. It's just an idea.
That's
So
a good idea.
Good luck. Feel free to email me too if you need some more. Again, we're kind of running a little short on time. I see a question in the chat that I am going to have to say that I do not have any recommendations on diapers. I'm so sorry that I don't have. She's asking. She has a soon-to-be stepson, and he's 10 years and 140 pounds, and the diapers are not sufficient. He only poops during the night in his diaper. Do we have recommendations on diapers aside from like medical and maybe he's already in more of a medical grade diaper at that weight? If anyone else has any recommendations for diapers that hold more volume, if you'd be willing to post in the chat or reach out to Sylvia, maybe she can get in touch and help this person, because good nights go up to 165 pounds. Thanks, Michelle. That might be a recommendation. Ideas of attempting pooping on the potty during the day. Just kind of the same tips that we've talked about here so far. We have 1 minute left. I don't know if anyone else has a quick question. If he's going poop at night and that's his schedule, I think that's also going to be a bit of a tricky thing. I think it might be quite a while before you're able to achieve going poop during the day if his schedule is to go at night and that's what his body is doing. That might also be a conversation for the doctor to just kind of see if there's something, with that. I think there's probably a little bit of, behavioral going at night in the diaper because that's comfortable, but then also just our physical, the physiological scheduling part of going at night versus going in the day. So yeah, I am really sorry that I don't have more helpful information on your question. We are at our time today, and I like to be very mindful and respectful of time. So I'm going to go ahead and cut us off with my talking and with our questions. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you. Like I mentioned in the beginning, my email is on the PowerPoint. Feel free to reach out if you have questions. And otherwise, again, feel free to share this with friends and family.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. I appreciate your time today. We will send out the recording and the PowerPoint and also Aubrey's contact information. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today to watch this webinar about potty training for special needs. If you are not yet a member of United Angels Foundation, you can go to our website, unitedangels.org, click the link to sign up. Membership is free and provides you and your family access to a number of educational resources, classes, events, and activities, as well as individual one-on-one support for all things related to raising a child with special needs. Again, that website is unitedangels.org.